Indo-European Studies. The Myth of Matriarchal Prehistory by Cynthia Eller. Beacon Press. Is the myth of total equality in ancient culture true? This idea that women were elevated in almost all areas of society permeates modern pagan culture, but is this potential fabrication the best platform for the women of today to move forward? In her book, Cynthia Eller discusses how this idea of women having equal rights in ancient days was not only unsupported by the facts, it is also not the most healthy idea for modern feminism. As a reviewer, I would say this is a good book, and truth in scholarly pursuit is how we provide the most justice. I also want to point out that sometimes people, myself included, need works just like this one to shake them out of a falsehood. Who is Cynthia Eller, and why is she qualified to write on this subject? She is a professor of religion at the University of Southern California and has authored 7 books on this subject or subjects relative to this discussion. She has also contributed to many other publications on the matter. The issue to be addressed first is the need for such work. The modern feminist authors have a tendency to treat a time before patriarchy as a time of pure fact with much fabrication. The truth is, this does not line up with the facts that current science has to offer. This argument does not say outright that there was no matriarchy or societies where women had the roles idealized above. The author makes it very clear that in many places women had power and rights. Furthermore, the ideals that are propagated are not the most healthy ideals for the modern women, as it places her in a box. The author argues for a view of the individual and not the archetype. Modern feminists need to come from a place of fact and sound reasoning in order to be as effective as they possibly can be, and that is her primary argument. The book is briefly summed up by creating an overview of this mythologized matriarch society, while adding in ideas to the contrary as well as support along the way. Then the case is made against it and other claims of patriarchy as it affects more recent history. She does make it a point to remind us of the importance of myth to the modern reader. Overall, this is a short book, but easy and enjoyable to read. Most readers are going to come away having learned something new about their past. Ethnic Study. The Saga of the Volsungs by Jessie L. Byock. Penguin Books. Ever wanted to read a book that influenced the author J.R.R. Tolkien? Then The Story of the Volsungs is for you. The part that directly influenced Tolkien, at least according to Tolkien himself, was the story of the ring and the dragon Fafnir. Often it is said that sagas like this one provide evidence of ways modern humans should live their lives. That may be a stretch, but like anything, there are chunks of great wisdom contained within this story. I recommend this book to all readers in all situations, because it will persuade you to never give up, and it is quite entertaining. What makes Jessie L. Byock qualified to provide commentary on this translation? He is a University of California professor on the subjects of Scandinavian studies and archaeology. He also directs Icelandic archaeology projects. He has provided commentary, translation, and publication of many books. He also teaches in Norse linguistics on the side. The Saga of the Volsungs follows the line of a particular family through times of tragedy and triumph as they face the beginning of the Dark Ages of Europe. This is a setting when the Roman Empire is crumbling and the Huns are ravaging the countryside. Attila the Hun is part of this story, called Atli. It is also important to note that this is a work of poetry, so throughout the book the reader should take note of that as well as the skill with which it is translated. Early in the book is a story of betrayal and some interesting werewolf lore for those who have interest. Then there is a story of betrayal that touches on the Old Norse augury of listening to the birds talk after the slaying of Fafnir. The birds warn our hero Sigurd of the impending betrayal. Then 2 of the most important parts of the story follow immediately. The first is an overview of Sigurd. The second is when Sigurd meets Brynhild, the famous Valkyrie. What follows is another major theme of the story, where Sigurd and his current wife Gudrun break up and he goes on to be with Brynhild because he believes he deserves a great daughter of the gods. This leads to many dramas of the late story and how they play out the court of Atli. Modern Paganism. The Idiot's Guide to Paganism by McComan, Alpha Books. If you are looking for an overview of modern paganism that is simple to understand and clear in its layout as well as presentation, then Idiot's Guide to Paganism is for you. Initially, the book touches on early modern pagan revival through magical orders and lodges, still largely based in Christian or Masonic though, and largely not inclusive. The book focuses mostly on modern paganism and its practice. It does not cover the overview of each tradition, as similar books on this topic do, and it is very heavily influenced by the Wicca religion. Overall, this is an interesting book and works much like a topic resource to be pulled as needed. It is a lot of information delivered in a compact way, so direct implementation in this work's entirety would take practice. This book is much more about practice than other books on modern paganism. Who is Carl McComan and why is he qualified to teach on modern paganism? He is mainly qualified by his scholarly work. He has authored many books, and for this work in particular is suited to teach because much of modern paganism did come from the early fraternal orders, who were heavily influenced by Christian as well as Hermetic orders. It is important for the reader to remember that the fraternal, mystical, and academic early pagan revivalists are much more akin to Masonry than to modern Reconstruction faith as you will find it at your local festival. Early work and early parts of this book are heavily influenced by Eastern mysticism. Wicca is also one of the largest influences over this book. So if a dualistic goddess and god culture is not what you're looking for, you will have to keep this in mind as you go. It is also important for the reader to know the Greek system is also prevalent in this book, so for a Norse or Irish pagan, the elemental system is different. As covered, the initial sections are concerned with the history of modern paganism and some of the movements that have influenced it. Then the reader is given a primer into Wicca. The book is written as if Wicca and paganism are one in the same. The middle part of the book is more about practice with an emphasis on ritual and magic, with all the parts that make up each on a somewhat basic scale. This section has a lot of interesting pieces to learn about. Finally, the book moves back into a modern cultural context and overview.